Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another CSM interview. We're going to be talking to Gustav today. Gustav, you know him. You've seen him before. Yes, in the Abyss. And it's time to talk to Gustav. Gustav, say hi to the people.
Hello, everyone.
Excellent, excellent. You've seen many of his Gustav. My Abyss videos have been inspired much by Gustav's stuff. He is killing it with maximum ISK per hour, triple boxing, all the things. So, chat, thanks very much. Join me in saying 07 to Gustav and chat, giving him a warm welcome. Thanks for taking the time, Gustav. We always like to start out with, what got you in to EVE Online? What made you start? You're like an expert on the Abyss now, but what got you going?
Yeah, that was like 16 years ago. It was just somehow scrolling on Steam and I found EVE. And then I thought, well, let's try it. And then I liked it. And so I kept playing till today.
Nice. 16 years. Wow. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm just as much. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's not so, I say 16 years like, wow, but now that I'm thinking about it, my character was made in 2009. Crazy. And you actually saw it on Steam. Would you believe that I didn't even know EVE was on Steam until a couple years ago, just because I've always used the EVE launcher. I had no idea. So, that's how it has to be sometimes. So you started all that time ago. You're doing Abyss. What got you into Abyss as like one of your main modes of content?
Actually, the old arena got me really into it.
Yes.
Like that second gate in the last room. And then when it got taken away, I just focused on maximizing high tier stuff.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, they used to, chat. You remember the Abyss used to have a PvP element. That was after the second room, I think you said? Yeah? I think it was the second room. Yeah, I am going to turn it up. I got you, chat.
Yes.
Perfect, yeah. I'm going to pump it up, chat. Don't you worry. So, yeah, that was... When did they remove that? Was that 2 or 3 years ago?
Summer 2020.
Summer 2020, my man. He knows the exact time. That makes sense to me, yeah. Because you really
July
enjoyed that
14.
stuff. Man, they're exactly the exact day. Sick. That's so funny. I love it. That makes me happy. No, it was a big change. It turned the Abyss from a very difficult, you had to contend with other player environment, to now it's just PvE. So sick. So that's your main thing now is Abyss. Tell me what you're running for CSM on. I think I already can guess based on what you said.
Yeah, that's bringing back the Proving Ground events and that second gate in the Abyss. But that's my key point, but not everything. It's actually also event stuff and some balance stuff, quality of life, little things, and so on.
Got it. Okay. So you would want to bring back the Proving Ground specifically in that portion of the Abyss. Is this for every single abyssofilament, or is this over like T3 to T6?
It was T3 and above.
T3 and above.
With Proving Ground, I also mean those events that we had afterwards.
Gotcha.
With different formats, 1v1, frigate, destroyer, battle cruiser, battleship, and whatnot.
Got it. Okay. That would be cool, actually. I would love to be able to do bigger, badder ships in the Abyss, too. So, yeah, that's pretty awesome. So is that the sole thing that you're working on, or is there other pieces to your campaign?
As said before, there are other pieces like balance, ship and modules, some love to high sec, quality of life changes, and some building cost changes and so on for ships.
Gotcha. What kind of module changes would you propose to CCP games?
Mainly look at faction and storyline turrets, because the majority of them isn't really useful. Like, have you ever seen a fit with 425mm Jolt autocannons?
True.
Because they use a bit less fitting but also do less damage. But if you lack fit and you just take 220s and not the storyline because the 220s are cheaper and probably also do more than the storyline ones. For the faction one, it would be nice if those specialization skills also affect those.
That alone would be huge. Because, Jan, if you don't know, T2 guns are affected by the specialization skills, but not faction guns. So if you have a faction gun and you have level 5 specialization, it doesn't do more damage. That's a problem. I actually would love that change. It doesn't make sense to me, wording wise, when you read that skill, Gustav, it says increases damage with guns. It doesn't say tier 2 guns, right? So why would they not just make it affect all faction guns too? They're already more expensive. When you did that, though,
Yes.
you definitely would have to rebalance them, I think, because now that they get that plus damage, obviously the officer ones are pretty good for what they are. They're at the tippity top of the damage. Maybe the mid-tier faction, pirate / whatever. All the green loot, champ. That would need to be rebalanced, but it is a change that I support, by the way. That does sound like a really good idea. For sure, for sure. You mentioned high sec balancing. What's that about? Tell me what you would be advocating for there.
For example, the escalations that you get from anomalies. Like in Minotaur space, most anomalies escalate to a 5 out of 10, but in Galente space just a 3 out of 10, and in Caldari space to 4 out of 10. I would just equalize that across all space.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I would
Like
totally do that.
Minotaur space, if the 5 out of 10 makes everyone farm in there, because those Gist and meat type modules are so spicy, followed by Caldari space, but Galente and Amar space isn't really worth because they only get 3 out of 10s.
That is such a big deal, and I never knew that. That would also cheapen the price of those faction and those blue and green loots that would drop, because if more people are farming in more places, there's less competition for more items, and then more of those would get back to Jitta, which would make the price go down. So that would help everybody. That's a W change across the board, chat. You're the first CSM that has ever talked about that to us. Well done. I like that. So a normalizing of high sec escalations in terms of tier. Anything else in high sec that you were really pushing for?
And also those named anomalies like the Forsaken height are way that isn't worth doing because there's no escalations. Yeah, it's eigentlich mainly escalations that are going on.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, just helping those out, making those sites better. Understood. Got it. I'm reading your thing here. I see you're talking about a lot of stuff about... I did stay away from high sec with all the stream snipers and gankers. So when you do your Abyss, are you typically not doing stuff in high sec now? You're doing it like in your own corner of the universe?
I do it in high sec, the Abyss, always.
Gotcha. Showing up. All right. Well, you do mainly frigates.
Yes, no one really goes after those because they're harder to go after, especially if you're multi-boxing.
Right. Right. And I'm scrolling down your form here while I look for what you're running on, because I want people to get a full breadth of what you're running on so they can potentially put Gustav on their list. So chat, and we're doing this in every video, Gustav, so please bear with me here. Every single person you've seen us talk to, you can put them on your CSM list. This will be available. The link will be in the description so you can see it. Check out Gustav's stuff there. This will be there as well. I'm going to link it for the live. This will be there for the people in the description. You get 1 vote, but you can put 10 people on there. So consider putting Gustav on there because you can put it in order 1 to 10. And if someone gets knocked out, then your vote will go to that person. So it's a bit complex, but this really does let the Capsuleers of New Eden cast their vote for who they would like. So consider voting for Gustav, chat, whenever we're doing the CSM stuff. So I see you talk about seasonal events, the hunt, Guardians Gala. Do you want to... What was the hunt and Guardians Gala? Many people in chat don't know what that is. Do you want to describe those to the people?
The hunt was an event where it was with Serpentis and Angel and took place around Valentine's Day. It was more or less similar to Winternex and Crimson Harvest. and there were Angel and Serpentis teamed, and the hunt was the event around Easter, which was mostly for frigates and destroyers, and it was Gustav's teamed, but also similar to Winter Nexus and Crimson Harvest.
Sick. Yeah. Back in the day, we used to have those all the time. Darn CCP Games putting out tons and tons of content that we can't get those. Now, I would love to have these back, seasonal events. I don't know if I would want both of those specifically, but maybe one of those, let's say. Because when I think about the seasonal events, we've had so much content recently that I think it might run a bit close to what their release schedule is. But I do agree that we should have probably like 1 or 2 more seasonal events throughout the year just to really keep spicing things up. So, and maybe we can switch. Maybe one year we have the hunt, next year we have Guardians Gala. Maybe it doesn't have to be every single year, because the Crimson Harvest is great. Love it. Winter Nexus is awesome. But I'm willing to say, hey, maybe we don't do Winter Nexus this year. So, and this year we are, chat. Maybe we don't do Winter Nexus next year, but we do have the hunt. Something like that. We'll see. We'll see. So, makes sense. You mentioned the module balance. We talked about that. Was it mainly just the faction officers, or was there more?
Not just mainly faction officer storyline stuff.
Got it. Yeah.
And if officer, it would also be nice if those officer modules are actually also really, many of them have the same stats or stats-based one, like afterburners and resistance modules and so on. And like, why should you fit like a weapons multi-spectrum on if you can just take a PIFM A type that is cheaper with the same stats? I mean, officer reds, they are very rare, and so the modules would really be top tier, high end, the best that you can get.
Right. Totally agree. Yeah. Just making less options there, maybe. Maybe that's just as simple as that, instead of having, because we have like Gistum A, B, C, Pith A, B, C. It's just a lot for players to really understand. And I talk about the compare tool every stream, and I'm sure you're similar, Gustav, and people are still like, oh, that's a thing. So good stuff. Good stuff. You mentioned ship balance. Many are some ships that need a lot. For example, the Cinnable and the Ashamu. So I agree with the Ashamu. What do you think is not great about the Cinnable?
I think the Cinnable could be a little bit faster, I guess. It is for an angel ship, not that fast. Is slower than a Stabber or a Vagabond, so it could have similar speed like those, and maybe a little bit more fitting room.
Yeah, fitting room on a cruiser especially would be huge. Yeah, chat, the Ashamu is the Nuding cruiser, and the Cinnable is the Angel cruiser that is very, it's good, but I don't think it's great. I kind of agree with that. So is it mainly those 2 ships, or are there other ships you were looking to improve?
Other, like the Crew also, the Blood Raider frigate.
The little Ashamu, right?
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Awesome
Yeah, those are definitely ships that are not used a lot. And I like the idea of buffing ships that are not used very much instead of nerfing ones that are used too much. That way you bring up other ships instead of bringing everything else down. So totally. Excellent. Makes sense. I'm reading your stuff. More love to high sec. Sounds good. That 5 out of 10 anomaly, I've never heard that. That blows my mind. I thought they were the same across. I've never done these sites in high sec. I had no idea. That's a reason, chat, why nobody goes, or less people go to Galente space, and why less people go to, more people go to Mimitar space. Crazy. Amazing. So, data sites in high sec. The loot is, you say, it's not really worth it most of the time. I would agree with that. How would you improve high sec data sites?
Like maybe give them a very small chance that you can get faction modules out of those.
Got it.
Or even implants like that, but on a small chance, so that there is some incentive to do them. I mean, high sec data sites are excellent content for new players also, so that there's actually some value in those.
Right. Chad, if you do a high sec data site now, you might leave with like 600,000 ISK. Not 600 million, 600,000. So there really just not a lot there. I think that makes a lot of sense to be able to have just something else to do there, having more value. And I like the fact that you're not saying just raise the value of the entire site. Have there be a chance for a pirate faction drop or some kind of large thing, implants. Yeah, that kind of goes in line with what CCP is doing with other areas of space, because as of the recording of this video, they just announced the Catalyst expansion, and you got to see that mining is getting critting. Well, hey, maybe high-sec data sites can also have some crits. Yeah, how many of us have scanned a site down and it's just carbon? It's like worth like 2 ISK. Not very fun. So, battle cruisers and destroyers for all pirate factions, bro. How do I retweet that? That's a yes, please, to all of those. Really like that. So Mechable and the Mamba a bit cheaper. Yeah, see, this is the push and pull, and I love to talk to you about this. Mechable and the Mamba they're great ships. The Mechable was my #1 ship for the Crimson Harvest to do the Class 2 and the Class 3s. The warp speed you get on is awesome. But I do agree they're a little bit expensive. Maybe a little bit, maybe like 50 million less, and I think it would be much more viable. So do you agree with that take, or would you want them to be like half price?
Yeah, I think that should be good. So if they're like 100 to 120, maybe 130 million or something like that.
Right.
But no, they're like just a bit cheaper than the cruisers, which doesn't really make sense.
That's a good point. Why would you buy a faction? Let's say you're an alpha. You can't use the Tech 2s. Why would you buy a faction destroyer? You can just get a cruiser. It's going to have better stats, better base stats anyway, and keep it going. That's a really, really good point. So I like the idea of battle cruisers and destroyers for all pirate factions. That does sound great. I'd like to see, before we get more, we are getting new battle cruiser for Sisters of Eve. We're getting the Odysseus very, very soon. And we are getting the Pioneer, the destroyer for Ors. That's kind of sort of approaching what you're saying. So once again, your notes are in line with the direction that CCP is going with it, I think. So good stuff.
And that's great to hear and see.
Oh my God, I can't wait for the Odysseus, man. We're going to have a good time with that. So you talk about building costs. How to acquire building materials for all types of ships. How would you improve how people acquire building materials? What does that mean?
Well, actually, in the next expansion, there's something coming to bring Ommo and Kernit back to high-sec with some new sites that you can get. But I think in general it would be nice, like a very long time ago, if you can get most of the stuff for Tech 1 sub-capital ships and Tech 1 modules in high-sec.
Yes.
Because right now, like before, they wanted to make it so that you even had to get parts with from low-sec, especially Isogen was a bottleneck a few years ago, because that you only could get somehow in low-sec, but no one really minds there because of all those pirates there.
True.
Yeah, it would be nice if you can get all that stuff in high-sec, what you need for Tech 1 stuff.
Yeah, it would be nice. That's one of the ones that I would definitely think would need to be implemented with subtlety. We've used that word a lot in these interviews, because taking a material that right now you have to go into dangerous areas of space to get and putting it in high sec, that one's going to be, I think they might be open to it, especially after the recent stuff. We'll have to see the benefits of prismaticite, the new ore that's coming out in Catalyst, because if that can be refined into isogen, and it can be, I think, because it can be refined into random things, you might actually just be getting that bullet point anyway. So, because of how the new ore chat, the prismaticite we just covered, is going to be able to be refined into any ore, or any crystal, is what it sounds like. So very, very interesting. Yeah. I agree that mining in low sec and wormholes, I don't know about wormholes. I love mining in wormholes. Low sec especially, I think, needs a look. What do you mean by needs a look?
You actually make it worth to mine in low sec, because in low sec you somehow have higher risk than in null sec or high sec, because in null sec you have intel and all those umbrellas, and in high sec, well, if you don't fly like a 5 billion barge, then if you get ganked it's just a small loss and not if at all. I think in low sec it should actually be worth to take the extra risk to mine there. Could also be implemented in some sort of like faction warfare stuff, so that you can actually also mine somewhat in faction warfare.
Got it. Yeah. I agree with you that it's low sec is, I think, the most dangerous area in all of Eve. It's not about Parchment is dangerous, and it feels similar to low sec, but low sec there's just so much lawlessness. This is a really good point that right now, from a mining perspective, there's really no point to go because you'll probably die. Like we would go there with ventures, and we get a little bit of isogen and come back. But indie people can't really do that. You're basically forced to mine elsewhere, if we're being honest. So again, we'll see how the catalyst mining changes fix that, but for sure. Quality of life changes, bug fixes in the Abyss. What kind of quality of life are you talking in the Abyss?
It's not only Abyss, but also outside the Abyss. Like, that's something I've been asking for like a decade or so, that when you get on escalation, that the pop-up window should have the location where it is, and if you are in the system, it should be able to right-click in space and warp to it, just like for missions.
Wow. That would be cool, actually. I like that a lot. Yeah, stuff like that. They already have the system implemented. That makes sense to me. So, it'd be nice to see the invulnerability timer when entering a new room, some sort of protection from disconnects. That alone right there, dude, is something that I would love to have. That alone, you have my vote based on that alone, okay? Because protection from disconnects in the Abyss. How many times have we been streaming and we're just like, well, I hope we're alive. You know, we were doing our triple boxing Skybreaker Hawk Deacon, I think is what it was. And I DC'd on my Skybreaker alone. And I'm like, well, we'll see. You know, it's real tough because if you DC in the Abyss and you're solo, a lot of people, as Gustav says, do not do tier 6 in a blinged out Stormbringer, let's say, because it's already tough enough. And then if you DC, well, your ship blows up and there's no recourse because they don't give you your funds back. It's absolutely, I think it's unfair. I think that's the best way to put it because...
Yes.
Right, go ahead. Yeah.
And many people also told me that they don't do high tier Abyss because of those disconnects, because they don't have that good internet or so. Or maybe the connection to the server isn't that good. Maybe the internet is fine, but something between the ISP and the server is happening, causing the disconnect. And often the support rejects the replacement, which is also very frustrating, even though it isn't your own problem.
Yes. That's the worst part, I think. And you got my vote on that alone, brother, because if I died of stupidity, you know, then obviously they're not going to replace my ship. I died. But if I died because your server's broke, whose fault is it really? You know, like, it's not my fault that, you know, the server DC'd. And yes, like, sometimes I'll play the devil's advocate. Can people abuse that where, like, they intentionally shut their Wi-Fi off when they think they're going to die? Sure, but honestly, if someone does it like 2 or 3 times in a month, we see a pattern here, and maybe support doesn't help that. But right now, there's no givebacks. If you DC at all, there's no support there. So, makes sense to me. So, excellent. Gustav, you are running on, I got to tell you, this is the most unique campaign I've seen. We've talked to, I think, 9 or 8 CSMs now. And you definitely have a good half chat of what we're seeing. I have never heard from the other CSM. So if you want this unique part of Eve improved, definitely consider voting for Gustav. Gustav, you get the final word, my friend. What do you want the people to know? Tell them.
Yeah, it's also what I also didn't mention is general improving the customer support. Like just before we talked about ship reimbursement, and they often just put some standard answer back like this isn't achievable, but it would actually also be nice if they would explain you why that is so. It's like often they say this ship isn't achievable, and if you tell us again about the same loss, then you might take some action against your account. It's somewhat like that, what those answers often feel like, which isn't actually a great experience.
Gotcha. It feels negative instead of helpful. Makes sense. Understood. Well, Gustav, anything else you want to tell the people? Any final words for the people before we play out?
Yeah, actually, many just think that it's all about the arena, but it's not. And I would appreciate your votes.
Chat, there you go. Excellent job. Chat, let's give an 07 for Gustav. Gustav, stay on the line. I'll be right back to talk to you. ladies and gentlemen, definitely consider voting for Gustav for CSM. That was the most unique platform we've seen from any of the CSM candidates. I'm really glad I got to talk to Gustav, because I also thought he's going to try to bring back the proving grounds he's been talking about a lot. But that was a lot. That was a lot of stuff that can really benefit most of New Eden. I'd like faction guns, reworked myself. So he might be making my list. Consider voting for him. The link's in the description. If you want all of the CSM interviews, make sure you check out the Loru radio playlist right here. It's got all of the recent stuff, and make sure you know who to cast your vote for, because who you do will affect New Eden and your game for years to come. So it's very important. And sub right here for the best Eve guides. We'll see you in the next video.